This man has been called possibly the world's worst serial killer, with over 300 deaths possibly attributed to him. Who is that man? It's Pedro Alonso Lopez. Welcome to Enter the Dark. Hello and welcome to Enter the Dark. I'm Jan from Film Daddy. With me as always is Les from Tales from the Hanged Man. You doing okay, Les?
I am. I'm doing very well. Hello, everyone.
Hello, children.
Hello, children.
So today, guys, we have got a quite prolific serial killer for you of the name of Pedro Alonso Lopez. Now, Les, have you heard of him?
Not heard of this one?
You haven't heard of much, have you?
No. I spend most of my time in the fields and the furrows with the fairies, as anyone listening to my other show will know.
Pedro Alonso Lopez was born on October the 8th, 1948 in Santa Isabela, Colombia. A member of the Colombian Conservative Party during Colombia's civil war, Pedro Lopez's father, Medardo Reyes, had a fight with his wife one December night in 1947 and stormed out into the darkness. He hired a prostitute named Belina Lopez de Castaneda and spent the evening with her. Soon after, she discovered that she was pregnant with Reyes' child. She was only 3 months along when Reyes was murdered by a rebellious mob. When Pedro Lopez was born 6 months later, he became the seventh of Belinda Lopez's 13 children.
She's not very good, is she? I mean, I got nothing against sex workers at all, but I'd say that one of the big things in that particular line of work is contraception.
You would think so, wouldn't you?
You would.
As a child, Lopez was witness to countless acts of prostitution, which he later claimed had damaged his psyche. From a young age, he would watch his mother have sex with clients, and that she would let them hit her on occasion. He was only 8 years old when his mother caught him sexually assaulting his younger sister, but his young age didn't stop her from kicking him out of the house for good. The youngster made his way to Bogota, Colombia's capital, where he became one of the homeless children known as the Gamines. He eventually joined a gang and smoked besuco, an impure form of cocaine. As bleak as the situation appeared, things quickly began to look up when an older man picked him up off the streets and offered him food and a place to stay.
That's never the good start to anything, is it?
Well, Pedro could not believe his luck and quickly accepted the offer in blind faith. Nonetheless, it was in fact too good to be true. Instead of being taken to a plush home with food and bedding, the man took Pedro to an abandoned building where he sodomized him numerous times before tossing him out onto the cold, hard streets.
He didn't even get a meal.
No. Following his misfortune with the older man, Pedro became terrified of strangers. He slept in alleyways and deserted buildings and would only meander out at night in the search of food from trash cans and local dumps. It was almost a year before Pedro would finally build up his trust again. After a few days of begging for food and scavenging dumpsters, a resident American couple approached him. The elderly couple were distressed by Pedro's skeletal appearance and were heartbroken watching him beg for food. They provided him with a warm meal and asked him to come and live with them. With little other choices left, Pedro accepted their offer and went home with the couple. He was provided with a free room and board and eventually enrolled in a day school for orphans. Regardless of Pedro's apparent good fortune and with everything else in his life, it was not meant to be. In 1963, at the age of 12, a male teacher sexually molested him at his day school.
Oh my goodness.
All of Pedro's previous fears were reborn and anger grew within him. Following the incident, he stole money from an office in the school and ran away from home. Pedro returned to the only safe place he knew, his first true home, the streets of Colombia. The country's civil war was becoming a thing of the past and the Cold War was nearly over. The government was reorganizing and factories, which had been built during the Depression, were slowly beginning to reopen. Nonetheless, Pedro had never been skilled in any trades and only held a minimal education. He spent the next 6 years of his life begging for food and committing petty theft in order to survive. By his mid-teens, Pedro began stealing cars to support himself. He had little to lose and local chop shops paid him well for his services. He was very proficient car thief and looked up to by younger apprentices of the trade. In spite of his skills, in 1969, 18-year-old Pedro was arrested by authorities for car theft and sentenced to serve 7 years in prison. He served just 2 days behind bars before being brutally gang raped by 4 older inmates. Following this most recent attack, Pedro swore to himself that no one would ever touch him again. In retaliation, he fashioned a crude knife from prison utensils and spent the following 2 weeks getting his revenge by individually murdering each of the 4 men that had raped him. The killings gained him the grudging respect of the other inmates, who never dared disturb him again. Authorities deemed the murders self-defense and simply added an additional 2 years to Pedro's initial sentence for car theft. Prison time, combined with his previous hardships, did irreparable damage to Pedro's mind and seemed to have pushed him over the edge of what little sanity he had held dear. Due to mental abuse he endured at the hands of his mother during his early years, he had grown fearful of women. He found social intercourse with them impracticable and fulfilled his desires through pornographic books and magazines. In Pedro's mind, his mother was to blame for all of his life's suffering and heartaches. Upon his release from prison in 1978, Pedro travelled widely throughout Peru. Following his release, he became a drifter and began abducting and raping and murdering an average of 3 young girls per week. On one occasion in Peru, Lopez attempted to abduct a 9-year-old child from an Indian tribe, but he was caught in the act. The Indians stripped and tortured him for hours before deciding to bury him alive. However, he was saved when an American missionary intervened and convinced them to let her deliver him to police. The tribe reluctantly agreed, but unaware the missionary instead drove Lopez to the Colombian border, where she set him free. Afterwards, he began travelling through the countries of Colombia and Ecuador, abducting and murdering more girls along the way. Police initially believed that slavery and prostitution rings were abducting the missing children. Following a flash flood near Ambato, Ecuador in 1979, the bodies of the 4 missing children were uncovered and found. Days later, Lopez attempted to abduct 12-year-old Maria Pavida from a marketplace, but failed when her mother caught him in the act. With the help of other women, he was almost lynched on the spot.
Whoa.
Well, Lopez was rescued by police officers and arrested while proclaiming he was a good person who had a clean heart. While in detention, Lopez was subjected to a standard interrogation until he told the policeman that he was not Ecuadorian, but a Colombian drifter. A police lieutenant then beat him and accused him of being part of a gang abducting girls. The officers threatened to kill him if he didn't confess, but Lopez remained silent. In that moment, the officer's superior, Captain Pastor Cordova, entered the room and told all the policemen to leave, deciding to interrogate the suspect himself with a more friendly approach. Good cop, bad cop.
Bad cop, yeah.
He offered Lopez food and cigarettes and asked him about his health and feelings before requesting information about the gang of abductors. Lopez shrugged and said that he knew nothing about that. When the captain told him that he was under great pressure from the families of the missing girls to find out whoever abducted them, it did not take long for Pedro to begin talking. Lopez told him that he could find one victim in a cabin outside of town. Police went to the cabin and found a nude, dead body lying on an old mattress, who was identified as Ivona Yacon, a missing girl. After Cordova asked Lopez how many girls he killed, he looked upwards and said, over 200 in Ecuador, some 10s in Peru, and many more in Colombia. The president was informed and he ordered that Lopez should be taken to the places where he had left the bodies until all of the victims in Ecuador were recovered. Lopez led the police to 30 shallow graves, but after learning that he was going to be charged with murder, he stopped cooperating and declared his innocence. Right. What did he think was happening?
Yeah.
He's already said, I've murdered all these people. Do you think he's just going to let him go?
It's like, hold on, what? You doing what? Not help him? No.
A total of 53 bodies were recovered in Ambato alone, even though many graves had been emptied by flash floods or scavenging animals before investigators could find them. Lopez's minimum body count is estimated to be at 110. But some believe the total number is in the vicinity of 300 or more. Many police officers and reporters have disagreed with the latter estimate, saying that it is still very low because he has stopped cooperating with the investigation. Lopez was convicted of 3 murders in 1980 and sentenced to 16 years in prison, the maximum penalty for murder under Ecuadorian law.
What?
He was incarcerated in the Pavilion B section of Quito's Garcia Moreno prison, where he was a model prisoner. 16 years.
60. You get more in Norway?
He was ruled insane in 1995, and as a result, he was committed to a mental hospital instead of being sent to prison. In January of 1999, Pedro Lopez gave an exclusive one-time only interview to National Examiner. During this interview, he said, "I am the man of the century. No one will ever forget me. I went after my victims by walking among the markets searching for a girl with a certain look on her face, a look of innocence and beauty. She would be a good girl, working with her mother. I followed them sometimes for 2 or 3 days, waiting for when she was left alone. I would give her a trinket like a hand mirror, then take her to the edge of town, where I would promise a trinket for her mother. I would take her to a secret hideaway where prepared graves were waited. Sometimes there were bodies of earlier victims there. I cuddled them and raped them at sunrise. At the first sign of light, I would get excited. I forced the girl into sex and put my hands around her throat. When the sun rose, I would strangle her. It was only good if I could see her eyes. It would have been wasted in the dark. I had to watch them by daylight. There's a divine moment when I have my hands around a young girl's throat. I look into her eyes and see a certain light, a spark suddenly go out. The moment of death is enthralling and exciting. Only those who actually kill know what I mean. When I am released, I will feel that moment again. It took the girls 5 to 15 minutes to die. I was very considerate. I would spend a long time with them making sure they were dead. I would use a mirror to check whether they were still breathing. Sometimes I had to kill them all over again. They never screamed because they didn't expect anything would happen. They were innocent. My little friends liked to have company, he said. I often put 3 or 4 in one hole, but after a while I got bored because they couldn't move, so I looked for more girls. Lopez was responsible for the death and mutilation of 350 young girls over a 3-year period before his arrest in 1979. Later in 1999, a new evaluation deemed him sane, and he was released on $50 bail, having served the maximum 20-year prison sentence allowed in the Central American country, which has no death penalty.
I think they really need to reevaluate their justice system, don't you?
$50 bail. This was under the condition that he should continue receiving psychiatric treatment and reporting himself to police every month. He did neither, and to this day, his whereabouts are unknown.
What? This man's at large?
This man is at large. Nobody knows where he is. He's admitted he will kill again. So yes, that was Pedro Alonso Lopez.
Has there been any follow-ups to this? I mean, like, surely they'd keep him under observation. You'd think.
Well,
they're not, are they?
They've said to him, you can go out, $50 bail, but make sure you're reporting to the police and psychiatrists every month. And he's like, I will.
Sure thing. Okay, boomer.
Disappears out the prison. No one knows where he is.
And that's a lot of jungle to get lost in as well.
Meaning we went across 3 countries before. He could go Brazil, Argentina, anywhere. He could be dead. Nobody knows because nobody knows where he is.
If he falls afoul of like natives again.
Do you think 300 could be more? When he was talking then, he showed no remorse in that interview.
No remorse. There was he enjoyed it. He clearly enjoyed it.
He did. In his mind, he said, I treated them nicely. They'd get lonely, so I put 4 or 5 in a grave. But then I got bored because they couldn't move. And he talked about the spark going out of them when they died and saying only people who've killed know that. I'll see that again when I'm released. He knew he was going to get released. He knew he would do this again. He's not said, I'm fixed. They just said, go to a psychiatrist, report to police. Okay. And he hasn't. And they're like, well, we don't know where he is.
I think as well, again, I'm not trying to defend the man. He clearly had a troubled childhood.
No, he clearly did. With his mum and everything, but he couldn't, he was raped, he couldn't approach women. I'm not saying this is why he did it, because I'm not going to justify his actions.
No.
Oh, it's because he couldn't approach women that he mutilated and raped children. But in something in his mind probably clicked of taking some sort of revenge on his mother while choking them. He had to see their eyes and things like that. But
lots of weird things. I mean, and it's kind of like, are psychopaths born or are they made?
But guys, please let us know what you think. Had you heard of him before? What do you think caused him to kill? Please let us know below in the comments, or just shoot us an email over at enterthedarkpodcast@gmail.com. We will answer most emails unless they're spam, but If you are some sort of Nigerian prince who wants to give us money, that's fine. Please just send us the money first and then we'll sort it out after.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to us today. I am Jan from filmdaddy.com. This is Les from Tales from the Hangman on YouTube. We shall see you soon. Take care.
Bye.